Welcome to episode 1 of my music theory series. If you haven't checked out my primer video where I explained my struggles with learning music theory and the epiphany that I had that changed my entire perspective on music theory, guitar, and even other instruments, check out that video first. Every day I get folks telling me how that video changed their musical life, and I'm hoping that it'll do the same for you. The first few episodes of this series are going to be quick dives into some of the super basic fundamentals of music. Even if you know or think you know most of this stuff, I still think it would benefit you to watch them, as in future episodes I'm going to be discussing these concepts and the lingo surrounding them. The goal here is to start small and simple, adding on 1 or 2 easy to understand and digestible ideas each episode, building on and reinforcing the ones before. If you watch each episode and really try to absorb the ideas I talk about before moving on to the next, I'm confident that you won't feel overwhelmed or confused at any point, which is one of my main goals. Before you know it, you're going to be a few episodes into this series and suddenly realize that a whole new dimension of music has been unlocked for you, and I really do think that it could change your life. Let's get started with the basics. First, the musical alphabet. The musical alphabet consists of 7 letters, A through G. Now, you can start anywhere, and as you proceed forward through the musical alphabet in order, there's only one rule to remember. When you get to the end, the letter G, you start back again at A. It's a simple, recurring cycle. Now, although there are 7 letters, anybody who's ever played the guitar, piano, or similar knows that there's actually 12 unique notes. This is why guitar necks are typically split in half at the 12th fret, and why there's 12 keys on a piano between 2 of the same notes. So, how can we have 12 unique notes, but there's only 7 letters to our alphabet? Now, one might deduce that there's notes between each of the letters, but when we try to visualize this, we'll see that if we leave space for notes in between each pair of letters, that would leave us with 14 total notes, which is 2 too many. This is where I'm going to introduce our first little caveat to what would otherwise be an extremely simple rule. There's a note between each of the pairs of letters in the musical alphabet, except for 2, and that's between B and C, and E and F. Updating our visual to reflect this rule, we're left with this, and now we can see that there's 12 notes in our full cycle. Now, this little heuristic is going to pop up as a familiar pattern in a million places, a pattern that I talked about in my first video teasing this series. This pattern may seem entirely arbitrary, but let me assure you that it's going to be extremely important throughout this series. Although you're more than likely a guitarist watching this, you'll easily spot this pattern anytime that you look at a piano from now on. When you look at the keys on a piano, we'll see white keys and black keys split into different groups of 2s and 3s in a repeating pattern. The white keys represent the letters of the musical alphabet, A through G, and the black keys are those in-between notes that we just discussed. Now, it's no coincidence that the white and black keys on the piano follow the pattern that they do. But again, more on that later. You likely already know at least part of the answer to the question of what are those notes that are in between each letter and how is it that we represent them? The answer is something you're undoubtedly familiar with in theory or in practice, although you might not know their formal name: accidentals. There's a bunch of accidentals, but we can ignore most of them for now and just focus on the 2 relevant ones, sharps and flats. If we were to number these boxes, we could think about sharps and flats as simple modifiers for a given letter, sharp meaning +1 and flat meaning -1. For example, C sharp is the next note up from C, and D flat is the note down from D. Now, doesn't that mean that C sharp and D flat are the same? Yep. They're the exact tone, pitch, sound, however you want to understand it. This note you hear right now is C sharp, and this note you hear right now is D flat. Ultimately, they're simply 2 different names for the same thing. Now, combining this idea with the previous rule of thumb we discussed, this also means that the note after B, you could call it B sharp, is actually just regular old C, which we can refer to as C natural, as it's not sharp or flat. Natural is one of those accidentals that I mentioned earlier I wouldn't be talking about. Oops. Anyway, at this point you might be thinking, why have more than one name for the same thing? That's a great question, There's reasons for that, but to understand why would involve getting deeper into other topics, but these topics are best understood with other foundational concepts that we'll be getting into in later episodes. So for now, you're just going to have to accept it, try to understand and remember it, and look forward to understanding how and when these distinctions are going to be relevant. Alright, so let's do a little wrap-up test to ensure our understanding of these basics. What is the letter following B in our musical alphabet? The answer is C. C comes after B in our little sequence of A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, etc. What's the letter before A in our musical alphabet? The answer is G. Again, the cycle is A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then we start back again at the beginning. How many frets or keys are between the same two notes on the guitar or the piano? The answer is 12. What's another name for the note E flat? The answer is D sharp. What's another name for the note B sharp? The answer is C. What are two different names for the note that comes directly after F? The answer is F sharp or G flat. And finally, what are two names for the note that comes directly before F? The answer is E or F flat. Now, if you have any questions about anything in this video, drop a comment and I'll be sure to answer as many as I can. In order to know how many of you want to see more of these episodes I've planned for this series and keep me motivated to keep making more, please drop the video a like, share with a friend that might be interested in these topics as well, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Something that's been really motivating me to make progress on this series has been all of the people that have come by during my live streams, which is pretty much all day, every day over on twitch.tv/Veritas. Come by, say hello, tell me what you thought, ask any questions, and I'd be happy to answer them, give you any sort of live demonstrations on the guitar or piano, and we can overall just hang out and have a good time. I hope to see you guys soon, and until next time.